Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the Sierra Club Iowa Chapter's Friday Weekly Lunch and Learn. Every Friday at noon, we go live with another topic, environmentally focused. And today we're going to talk about carbon pipelines again. But this is a little bit about what the easements are that they're offering, which might kind of signal why so many landowners are opposed to this project and are refusing to sign easements. So we want to go over what's in these easements and what has us concerned. So I'm going to share my screen here and we will get started. And if you have any questions, please put those in the chat and we'll get to those at the end. So Summit's easement overview. First off, let's talk about what is an easement. An easement is a right to cross or otherwise use someone else's land for a specified purpose. These easement offers that Summit's giving to landowners, they include the location of the easement and then the terms of the agreement. And Summit needs all the landowners along its 2,500-mile pipeline path to sign voluntary easements, or Summit will need to seek eminent domain against those landowners. And these easements are forever. They are not just with the pipelines. If the pipeline stops being used, the easement's gone. It's not like that. This goes on forever for whoever owns the land for generations to come. And then you kind of get a picture. This is one page of over 30-page easement of just kind of what someone's proposed route would be across their land. So let's go into some of the terms of the easement. And keep in mind, there are a lot of terms. We're just highlighting a few that concern us, but there is, many more concerns in this easement. So the first one, and now this is different than what they offered in their phase one easements, is that you have to cooperate with and support Summit in getting the project approved if they ask you to. And the language in the easement says that the landowner agrees to cooperate, execute, obtain, or join with the company in any applications or proceedings for such approvals, permits, and zoning amendments. So basically, if we need your help to come testify and say this is a great project and we are so happy it's here, you have to do that. Secondly, Summit has free reign over your property whenever they want for whatever they want. And this is in the easement terms that it's a non-exclusive license to access landowners' property to conduct such studies, inspections, and surveys company deems appropriate. So as long as the company deems something appropriate, they can do it. What else is in the easement? You cannot do anything with the land that would potentially interfere with a future easement. No tiling, no planting trees, no selling the land, nothing unless Summit says you can. Summit can extend the option agreement for eternity. So you are essentially assigning away control of the land. So you can't do things like plant trees or anything, build a new home on a piece of property that you'd plan to retire on. You can't do anything that will encumber any interest that Summit has on the land. So what else is in the easement? Summit can change its mind and end the agreement at any time, but you can't change yours. So once you sign this, you have 7 days to change your mind. And after that, it's forever. There is no rescinding this. But Summit, if they can end it whenever they want. If a company fails to exercise the option during the term, this agreement shall automatically and immediately expire and terminate without notice. Company may cancel and terminate this agreement by giving landowner written notice of termination. But if a landowner changes their mind, they cannot get out of it. Another big concern that we've been hearing for the last 4 years and what we saw after the Dakota Access Pipeline construction was the restoration of land and actually the lack of restoration of land. And that's because in these easements, there's little language that says land will only be restored so far as it is reasonably practical. And guess who decides what's reasonably practical? Summit. So that's why we're seeing people on the Dakota Access Pipeline route who are still having problems today. And, that's what we fear is going to happen if Summit's pipeline is allowed to proceed. Next thing is you cannot sell the land without permission, but Summit can sell the easement option to anyone they want, and they don't even have to tell you. So landowners shall not sell, assign, encumber, or transfer all or any portion of its interest in the landowner's property during the term without the company's prior consent, not to be unreasonably withheld. But the company may assign this agreement in whole or in part without the consent of a landowner. Next, and this one's one of my favorites to read because this is what they're reserving the right to do on someone's property. For the purposes of owning, accessing, surveying, establishing, laying, constructing, reconstructing, installing, realigning, modifying, replacing, improving, substituting, operating, inspecting, maintaining, repairing, patrolling, protecting, changing slopes of cuts and fills to ensure proper lateral and subadjacent support for and drainage for, changing the size of, relocating, and changing the route or routes of, abandoning in place and removing at will, in whole or in part, one pipeline. So that's all the things that they're reserving the right to do on these people's land. What else is in the easement? You are agreeing to let Summit put a pipeline anywhere on your land. It is not limited to what might be in the drawing that's included in the easement. And in the easement, it says the exhibit B, which is this map that we saw at the very beginning, shows the approximate location of the pipeline easement and temporary construction easement. So let's zoom in on this a little bit. Here it is, a little bit bigger. So when this is presented to a landowner, if you're not reading very closely, you might think, okay, well, it's just on kind of on the edge of the property. Maybe it's not as bad as I thought it was going to be, but by the end of it, it is cutting whatever direction they want it to cut through. And when you zoom in on this part of the map, this is a preliminary document and is intended to depict the approximate location of a proposed pipeline easement. So really, they can move this thing wherever they want on the parcel if you sign that easement voluntarily. So the question then comes, so why aren't landowners signing these easements? There's over 800 unsigned parcels on phase 1, and we have no idea on phase 2. We're assuming a huge majority of them have not signed yet, but it's pretty simple. And these aren't the only reasons. These are just some of the obvious ones. It's the principle of having property rights for some people. The saying, we don't want this on our land and no should be enough. It's the dangers of how these pipelines are so hazardous and could kill someone. It's how the company is behaving when they're bullying and harassing people all across the state. Many people are saying that their offer amounts are laughably low. It limits what someone can do in the future on their land, for the future generations, for anyone that comes after them that might not even know what they want to do with the land. It damages the land. These forever easements impact someone's legacy. The terms aren't fair. And what we're noticing on these phase 2 easements is they're more restrictive than phase 1. So it's pretty obvious why so many people across the state do not want to sign these easements and they do not want Summit Carbon Solutions on their land. But if we're going to take action and make sure this doesn't happen, because if Summit's allowed to do this, any company in the future can come in and do this. We have to stop it now, make sure it doesn't happen. So contact Senate leadership and ask them to ban eminent domain for carbon pipelines. And a really simple message is do not let another legislative session pass without protecting landowners from eminent domain for carbon pipelines. Pass HF 943 now. And then I put a list of who some people to contact are. Senate President Amy Sinclair, Senate Majority Leader Jack Whitver, Senate Commerce Committee Chair Mike Busolo, and Governor Reynolds. And that is her Chief of Staff, Karen, because Governor Reynolds doesn't have a public email address for us to use, so we're going to use her Chief of Staff's email address. So please, everyone, spread the word. This only is going to pass if as many of us as possible take action. We know that we're at a tipping point in the session. We've got a few weeks left, and if we all reach out and we all make it clear that this is an important issue to us, then we can get this bill passed and we can protect Iowans from this project and any future dangerous carbon pipeline project. So thank you, everyone. If you have any questions, please put those in the chat and we will get to those later on in the day. I will post these email addresses in the chat for you so you can copy and paste those and send your emails. We hope you have a great weekend and we will see you next Friday at noon. Thanks. Bye.